Recording. Hello, people in TV land. Hello, embodiment. I want to say embodiment geeks, but some people might take offense to that. Embodiment cool people, embodiment humans, people considering what it is to exist in a human body. Um, I am going to work with you guys today on the sensation of time in our bodies and also how time arrives in movement and how what we notice and what we feel in relationship to time. And I'm also in a room with several cats who are probably going to get involved in the whole event. One is just sleeping, suspended in time, and the other one just walked out of the room. But let's start with just some coherent breathing. So the coherent breathing also is related to time because what we're doing is we're going to even our inhale and our exhale so they take the same amount of time. And I'll count it for you. It's called coherent breathing because it's not upregulating or downregulating you. It's taking you to an even keel. And since many of you already know that the vagus nerve is responsible for, our parasympathetic, calming, rest and digest, soothe and settle. And part of that is that it's dealing with our respiration, our heartbeat, and our digestion. And so when we're working for coherent breathing, we're trying to get all of these systems to work together. So we also have lots of systems going on in our body. And when we come into this idea of coherence, coherence is harmony. It means things are working together. Nobody's out of tune in the orchestra. Everything sounds right and it's working together in time. And I feel like rhythm is a great way to come into coherence. So I'm going to count it for you. It's going to be an inhale for 5 counts and an exhale for 5 counts. We'll do that for a couple of minutes just to arrive. But before we do that, let's just take a couple of big deep breaths with a sigh. So as big as you want. And if you want to lift your arms, you can. Inhaling up and exhale. Let it go. Release and soften. And again, inhale. Maybe let out some sound. When we add sound, the vibration in our tissue is going to be also more of an opportunity to release. Inhale, lift. Let it go. And then taking a couple of seconds to just receive yourself. Receiving yourself in the as is with no need to change or to grasp onto anything or to force anything, but just to be in the allowing and in the inquiry. Yeah, so we could do hands on belly, hands on heart. Just coming into ourselves for a couple of breaths to be in the as is. And then taking a big deep breath, exhaling everything out. And I'll count us in. So it's going to be inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then just letting that go. And throughout this time, I really want to offer that you can move in any way that you want. You can stay still. You can take things in in any way that is most useful for you. I tend to be more of a mover than a stillness person. So we're going to take this in this idea of micro movement. So micro movement is any kind of tiny little internal adjustment, or maybe it's happening on the surface. And we can think of it like these systems of our body just coming into this coherence on this micro level, this tiny little level, which then may ripple out into a more macro level. It may start to open up. So maybe it's really small movement to start out with, or as Teresa's on her trampoline, it's maybe not that small, maybe it's bigger, whatever works for you. So it's really an exploration for your own. But let's start to play with just tiny little micro movement in the forward and the backward. So maybe in a tiny little way with your breath, you're moving forward, and tiny little ways with your breath, you're moving backward. And with that, you can start to see, yeah, a physio ball is a perfect way to do this. And in fact, in a minute, I'll probably go and get mine. I'm currently sitting on a ottoman, which isn't as fun as a physio ball. But letting yourself move forward and move back, and just feeling the tempo of your forward and backward movement. I'm going to keep talking and go get my physio ball. Feeling into the tempo of that forward and backward movement, seeing if you can take it down into a very slow, easy, soft way of moving. And we're allowing our body on this micro level to tune in with the breath that we've just done, to come into this sense of coherence, of organic coherence, where there's nothing to do, just explore and allow. So instead of forcing and pushing, we're exploring and allowing. And maybe there's some more side-side movement, maybe there's some up-down movement. Feeling how it feels in your body, just to play with the concept of time, and even to play with the sense of time being kind of even, nothing speeding up, nothing slowing down, just this even sense of time. And then also playing with the idea of time slowing down in our bodies, our movement slowing down in our bodies. And eventually, after we've slowed down, we're probably going to want to speed up again. So playing with these three possibilities of time, I can be in even, where nothing is changing. It's very sort of like being in a spell, because there's no shift in time. It's almost like we've suspended time, so it becomes timeless. And then shifting through these ideas of speeding up and slowing down. We could think of like suspension, and release, like letting ourselves play with these ideas in movement, in breath, in micro movement or in macro movement. And I like to think that with the micro movement is the underlying support for the macro movement. So micro movement, underlying support for big movement. Letting ourselves play with it. And if you actually let your body go into like a really slow motion, what comes into your awareness? So maybe it's a slow motion that's just very even slow. It's not speeding up or slowing down. It's just a slow motion. Letting us tune into that. And we can also allow some breath sounds to come in if that feels good. It could be verbal vocal cord sounds, not verbal, just vocal cords, so that we're making like ooh, gooey, chewy sounds. Or if it's uncomfortable, you can also play with not adding that vocal cord, just feeling into that, feeling into what's happening in your body. And I want to invite this idea that to truly explore and to truly learn new things, we have to sort of start to allow the patterns to shift. So if we find ourselves in repetitive patterning, see if you can just change something ever so slightly to allow the pattern to become something new. Ha. Adding sound whenever that feels good. Hoo. And then to start to consider with your own energy and your own sort of patterns of being. Do you tend to be somebody that's more slow, maybe more grounded and earthy, really taking your time and laying a foundation? Or do you tend to be someone who's more speedy, maybe more airy, and really popping around from here to there? So if you have a preference in time, we can also start to add some little flicks and pops into little speed moments so that there can be some just little impulses where time shifts just for a second, like a brief flick of speed. Yeah. Ha. And just feel like what happens with your nervous system when you start to add these shifts, like a tiny little, maybe almost like a spasm, and then coming back into slow. So we could think almost like if we were water, and depending on how the water is expressing, like let's say it's a river and the river is just moving along and then it encounters something, it kind of has to do a little floop to get around that. Hello, Phoebe. To get around that rock or that edge. So the water can have this smoothness, this even rhythm, and then whew, a little shift. And that is sort of what's happening in our body. We are bodies of water. So where are the whirlpools and eddies that might have more speed? And where are the slow flows where it's just moving along, or maybe even coming into like total stillness? But thinking of our stillness as not being a stagnant water, but an alive, vibrant water. So I'm just adding all of these elements. We've got the speedy little pops of air. We've got the slow, grounded nature of the earth. And then we've got these like little flicks, these little impulses, which we could also think of not only as like these movements in the water, but we could think of it as movements from our nervous system. So as humans, we've really learned how to inhibit movement in our nervous system. But if we allow some of these little pops, it's also like we're tuning into the fire nature of our body, these little little explosions happening here and there, where a little message is coming, or a big message, popping around our body. So basically what I'm giving you is like a whole lot of options for differentiated movement and aligning those with the elements, with our nervous system. We can think of it with our blood flow. We could think of the earth as connected into our bones. So if we want to slow down, we might want to tune into that bone energy, that bone density. Bone takes the longest time to form. When an astronaut goes into space and returns, well, when he goes into space, like he loses bone density, his fascia becomes thinner, his blood becomes thinner. When he returns back to the earth, the first thing to come back to normal is the blood. And then the fascia starts to get stronger again. And then the bone finally starts to get stronger. So we can think of that bone density as very much the slow, earthy, grounded part of us. And then the blood can be this very fiery and watery part. We've got our heartbeat happening in there, which is also electrical. So I kind of connect that to fire. So just tuning into what the preferences are. Are there things in here that feel like, oh yeah, that feels so good, like coming home? Or are there things that feel like, wow, that's really unfamiliar and not comfortable? So starting to just notice when we start to add a possibility to our movement repertoire, we start to become sort of bigger in our capacity to engage with the world or to understand the world or to see the world as, oh, there's that person that's always popping like that. It's always driven me crazy. But now that I started popping around, I can kind of relate to that. Where there's that person that's just so slow and centered, and it's always been difficult for me to feel connected to them because I'm up here. But if I slow myself down, I can connect into that person. Or there's that like watery person who's really fluid and not not really committing to anything, just kind of flowing from here to there. Ah, how does that land for me in my being with these people, or even maybe they're people inside of myself? When I'm a certain type of myself, when I'm my bratty person, I'm a little bit more volatile and screamy. when I'm my grounded teacher person. Well, my teacher person's pretty fast and airy, but let's just imagine that inside of me is much more adult, mother, father, grounded teacher, more slow, more deliberate. So just tuning into how these things relate to us and how we relate to them. We started out with that coherence with the breathing to come into this coherence. Let's go with a new play. And since we've got a couple physio balls out there, and Fabricio, you can maybe bounce on your couch, but starting to add a bounce. So we really feel this relationship to the up and downness. So as we're going down, it's the gravity. We can feel the water in our body, and we're going to add a breath to this. And this breath is actually a continuum breath. It's called the who breath. And it's basically like who, ha, he, ha, who. It's a very upregulating breath. Who, ha, ha. So we start to play with speed and ha, like you're a monkey. Ha, 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 and you can let your face free up. And just feel what it does to your energy system. Is it something that brightens you up, or does it feel like, wow, this is exhausting? So there's no rules about the sounds that come out of your mouth, but and then start to let it slow down and just feel into your nervous system. If you want to keep going, go ahead. If it feels like, oh, I really need to do that, then by all means continue. Yeah. But if you're ready to let it sort of come, just let's take a minute and I'll stop talking and just feel into yourself. Feel into the speed of your body. You can move if it feels good. You can stay still. Just noticing what arises for you. Sometimes we have to go all the way in one direction before we're ready to go in another direction. And sometimes it's nice just to have a little taster of these different possibilities. Just feeling what feels good to, yeah, to be in you right now. And to notice what your relationship with time is, which can be different. What's your relationship right now? Are you sort of suspended in the timeless? Are you dropping down into the very slow, sustained? Or is there sort of an alive, buzzy speeding going around in the nervous system? Tuning into what it feels like inside. And inviting your body to really process in whatever way feels good for you right now. Just listening in to whatever's arising and giving it full permission, giving yourself full permission to tune into what feels wise and compassionate for your own body today. Or in this moment, and knowing that it can be very different from day to day. Inviting any tension to just melt away. And if there's any kind of grasping or trying to hold on to anything, if it feels okay, invite it to just release, invite it to let go. Just breathing into being. Yeah, and I see this note, this neck, throat, face stuff has gone on, which looked really delicious. Yeah, feeling into whatever needs to let go. Is there stuff in your neck, shoulders, chest, throat And maybe it's also just okay to be there with compassion that, oh, this stuff is going on, but you know what? It's okay. It's part of what's going on. So that who breath that we did is very much an upregulator. It can be good to develop your energy, but it can also be good if you have a lot of energy to dispel the energy. It can do both things. I'm thinking about like when you see a dog on the street. If you come up with the dog, so excited to see the dog, you're going to get that dog up and alive, super excited too. So think of that who breath as almost like you're going up to your animal body of the dog and going, "Ah, let's play," right? If you go up to a dog with a very, okay, I'm not really going to pay attention to you, but I'm calm and it's okay, the dog is going to respond very differently. So, and I'm just seeing what you're doing, Diane, and it's all looking, wait, yeah, really delicious. Really nice. Like, some self-touch, some clearing. Do we need to let go of some things? And the flicking is a great way to let go of things. We can play with that flick release. Ha. Also with that who breath, it's going to get some deep diaphragmatic breathing happening, which is going to then stimulate your lymphatic, which the arm brushing also does, stimulating lymph. I'm going to share a screen and just sound. And I'm just going to give us a last sort of 5 minutes of somatic dancey movement. So however you feel like moving, I'm going to play this. It's a pretty short song, but just letting yourself come into movement with this. Or come into stillness if that feels better. Whatever you need. So that was the music of a French artist who I used to do a lot of collaborations with from Marseille. So, how's everyone doing? I'm going to stop recording. Everyone in TV land, thank you for being with us.